This is Man in the Cave Reupload by Internet Historian, and if you like it, you should hit that like and that subscribe button because we always appreciate the content other people make, and we should show that. Also, this was recommended to me because I have a fear of caves, so I'm very concerned why you guys are trying to put me through this. I would never do something as dumb as cave diving. Neither would I. It's too scary for me. It's way too scary for me.
Sorry for the re-upload, fellas. The original got copy struck. RIP. But don't worry, we are working on new main channel videos. Here's a sample of the timelines. In the meanwhile, Incognito mode, which has a new video about every 6 weeks, and Story mode, which has a new video about every 4 weeks. Thank you for watching a second time.
Or first time for me. I can't. Well,
in the state
it's okay.
Of Kentucky,
it was almost
there is
not
a cave
visible.
That every now
Real quick. This might make the face tracking not as good, but real quick, I'm going to turn off the lights to make it spookier. I think it'll be spookier if the lights are off.
One then demands a sacrifice. January 30th, 1925. A man walks towards the cave with a kerosene lamp in his hand. He hangs up his jacket and ducks into a 5-foot opening. The inside of the cave is small. He has to go on hands and knees, crawling through passages of sharp stone and choking dust.
Oh God.
Then down a chute he had cleared out months earlier. All of the daylight is gone from here, and this lantern is his only source of light. Ignoring the loose limestone rocks perched directly above him, he is now 100 feet in, and here he reaches
the turnaround
room.
Be me.
Now they call this the turnaround room because this is the juncture where even experienced cavers say, no thanks, and turn around. Because to continue on means going through this. The squeeze. A gap in the stone of only 9 inches. For
9
instance,
inches?
Here's a subway sub. Going through, he would look exactly like this.
I cannot.
His arms will need to be completely at their side, and he will need to exhale so that he can reduce the size of his torso. Gradually, bit by bit, he disappears into the hole. His clothes are caught on sharp gypsum crystals, hooking into him and threatening to hold him in place. Using just his feet, he pushes himself forward. He reaches a wider opening at the other side, then crawls forward towards a ledge. Lit by the lamp is a drop about...
Sometimes when I'm like in bed and I'm like wrapped in my blanket, if I can't like get my legs out of the blanket, I start to feel claustrophobic and like panicky if I can't get my legs out of the blanket easily. So, like, if that tells you how easily, like, I'm claustrophobic, this is my nightmare. I hate this. I would never be in this position where I can only move my feet. If I'm in that position, it is not by choice. I am not willingly putting myself in a small cave like this. Oh my God. Caves are my worst nightmare? Exactly. An average American can't go cave diving? Have you never seen the chart of like where caves are? There's a lot of caves in America, I thought. Oh wait, you mean with how thin it is? Oh my God, that went over my head.
Twice his height. There's already a rope here. He gently climbs down. His worn-out leather shoes touch the ground. This is as far as he can go, and it is time for work to begin. What he is working on is another opening. At the moment, it's too small for anyone to fit through, but he will chip away at it until he can shove himself right through the other side. Because on the other side is this, an otherworldly cave structure, dripping with pristine white crystals.
I would never go there, but so pretty.
Every day for months, he has been removing rocks from this crevice. To him, this is all just routine. So he shimmies further into the gap, his body contorting to the shape of the crevice as he wriggles his way in. The walls becoming so tight that he can no longer use his arms. Then, about halfway, he stops. The lantern. It's starting to dim. He will need to go all the way back to the surface to refuel the thing. He sighs. He slowly shuffles back out, pushing the lantern with his shoulder. Then, oh no, ding, crack, darkness. He has knocked over the lamp,
oh my god,
and it has broken.
Oh my god, no.
The man breathed deeply and relaxed. He had been in worse situations before, and he was confident he could navigate his way to the surface through feel alone. He searches around with his feet to find something he can push against.
Anything, please.
He thinks.
Oh no, wait, no,
but
he's gonna push himself in the wrong spot.
He's pressing against a loose rock
on the ceiling.
That's even
worse.
As soon as he puts his weight against it,
That's
it
even
comes
worse.
free. A solid piece weighing 15 kilograms lands directly on his ankle. It aches. But he's okay. It doesn't feel as though his ankle...
If I'm thinking right, I think something as little as 2 pounds of pressure in the wrong spot of your leg or bone is enough to break a bone. If I remember right, I don't think it takes that much actual weight to break a bone. How much is it? Is it not? I know it's a incredibly low weight, way lower than you would expect. Because usually your bones aren't just exposed. Normally they're wrapped in muscles and stuff.
Ankle is broken, just badly bruised and caught underneath the rock. So he shuffles to...
Need a few more pounds? Is it 5?
Move the rock away. Suddenly, gravel. A lot of gravel. It falls onto his feet, his legs, his torso, and the weight of it all forced the rock harder down onto his foot and locks it in place. Every time he tries to move, more rubble falls, holding him tighter. He is stuck. This is Sand Cave. This man is Floyd Collins. He is trapped in absolute darkness, 60 feet deep below the earth, all of his limbs held in place at the very bottom of this.
Oh, I'm getting chills watching it through the tunnel.
But before I tell you what happens next, ad time. Speaking of people trapped in a cave, World of Tanks. World of Tanks is not only the best game I have ever played, it is the only game I have ever played. It's like Cars, but tanks. Picture this. You're a hot new T-34
It's like
85M,
Cars, but not.
and you just joined the battle because some Cromwell B tank-bagged your entire family. It's time for revenge. You must use strategy. You must use stealth. You must use your wits to defeat your enemies.
Yes,
use
cunning.
long range or short range. It's available on console, but I want you to get it on PC. Imagine a world war, but there are tanks involved this time.
And only tanks.
Now you get it. When you've seen as many messed up tanks as I have, you get a little cynical about the world. My God, I'm gonna be sick.
I would actually...
Look at all the different tanks.
I would unironically play World of Tanks if the tanks were actually that, where it's the top part is a human body. I would unironically play it. That would be so funny.
You can collectomize and customize them all. Massive battles where you can constantly team kill and ruin other people's good time.
No! Don't team kill!
Did I mention it's historically accurate, especially the Japanese robot tanks? Ooh, look, the tanks are kissing.
When two tanks love each other very
Use
much.
the invite code TankMania and get the Excelsior.
Leia, you're just describing Skibbity Toilet. Oh no, it always comes back to Skibbity Toilet.
Staff, go to the link in the description and use the invite code TankMania. Here's what you do. Get World of Tanks. Put that on one screen. Then, on a second monitor, you'll watch the next hour of this video while you play the game. Perfection. I'm contractually obliged to say thank you for being a friend. Sarge, no.
Thank you for your service.
Tank's empty, kid. Go on without me. No, use your repair consumable. It's too late, kid. Take care of my family for me. No.
Can you pay real money for those?
Get it.
Can you pay real money to fix your tank?
Collins is still in the dark, unable to move. He can feel the sharp crystals on the ground poking into his back. The ice melts above him, traces across the ceiling and drips directly onto his face. He would shield himself against the dripping, except that his right arm is wedged against the roof of the cave and his left is stuck in place underneath his torso. The cold water dripping onto him pools underneath him. Floyd took slow, steady breaths in the concentrated dark. When he did attempt to shuffle, more gravel and rocks would tumble from above and pile onto his feet, so nothing would work. He raked his fingers against the wall until blood pooled underneath his nails, and he realized that there was only one option left. Call out for help. But wait. Who is Floyd, and why did he even go into a dangerous cave?
He's addicted to the thrill of it. He's bored with life. I don't know why people do it. You couldn't convince me to ever.
Floyd started his caving career at the tender age of 6. Growing up, exploring the caves of Kentucky was practically all he did. He would go off on his own, disappearing into the caves for many hours at a time. Have you seen that movie, The Descent? It was a lot like that.
Oh,
he grew up and he became embroiled in the Kentucky Cave Wars. Now, there's way too much to go into here, but the summary version is, there's this huge network of interconnected caves called Mammoth Caves. It's actually the largest cave system in the world. And there's a city
I've heard about
in the middle of it. Cave City, real name. So of course, there are dozens of cave entrances on private property all over the place. Now, farmland in this region has very poor soil, and things do not grow well here. So, cave tourism as a source of income quickly became the prominent thing. However, a problem. There are a very large number of caves, but there are only a limited number of tourists. So competition rapidly escalated. Visit my cave. No, visit my cave. Big signs were erected saying, tourists, come to me. Mine is definitely open. Mine is the best. But then competitors would respond by saying, hey, by the way, we're open, but don't go to that one over there. It's really shitty. In fact, it's dangerous. This kept going further. By the end, they were blocking off the trail to each other's property, beating each other in the streets, and hiring people called cappers who would dress up as policemen and tell tourists, no, you can't go in there. That one? No, it's illegal.
What?
Despite the fierce competition, Floyd found a cave on his property and he started advertising it to tourists. Of course, very few came. All right, he thought, what if I found something really special and unique? Then surely people would have to come to my cave to see it. So he kept exploring.
I have to say though, this makes a little bit more sense than just randomly deciding that he wants to risk his life to listen, I still wouldn't do it if I was in his situation, but it has a lot more logic behind it than just going down caving for fun, which I understand some people do it for fun, but that will never be fun for me, and it's hard for me to imagine it being fun and not terrifying.
Until he found this hollow. It was filled with big gypsum crystals, and when you were in there, it felt like a completely alien world. But it was barely accessible. This small tunnel is the only way in. He would need to dig for months to open it up to tourists, but he knew he could do it. Back to the competition. They knew the value of this cave. They knew the potential, They wanted it for themselves,
Oh,
and they
no.
wanted Collins gone. A few months prior, a group of 5 men showed up to his farm unannounced.
Ah, hand over that lease, Floyd,
they said. Floyd, of course, refused.
Yeah,
so they turned to
no.
violence, knocking him down and savaging the helpless man until Homer, Floyd's brother, came running out of the house with a shotgun. But Floyd was not deterred. He spent 12 hours a day, every day, for months, clearing gravel and stone, chipping away at that passage. He would open it up to tourists, make his cave an incredible attraction, and make his dreams come true.
Hey! Is anyone
So there's Floyd in the dark, yelling out for help, yelling into the pitch black. After a while, his voice would give out, and he would have to sleep to recuperate. He would then wake sometime later, remember where he is, and begin yelling again for help. Here he remained in the dark for the next 23 hours.
Oh my god, he's just like me, for real, for real.
Quickly you might wonder, how come no one's come for him after 23 hours? Well, Sand Cave resides on a 200-acre farm. There are several homes on this property with other families. One of them, of course, is Colin's house, where Floyd's father, Lee, resides. Now, Lee and Floyd constantly get into fights about how to run things. Lee wants his son to concentrate on farming, and Floyd wants to concentrate on cave tourism. Arguments would often get heated. And Lee was also a bit of a drunk. It was doubtful that he would even notice if his son, Floyd, was missing. Also not helping things, Floyd regularly lodged at 2 other homes on the farm. So when he didn't return to one host, they would presume that he was staying with the other. And, even worse still,
Man,
he
that
was
must
known
be
to
nice being able to
occasionally
switch it up.
in the cave, doing stints of up to 30 hours in there without resurfacing. Regardless, around the 23-hour mark, a few locals started to suspect that, hey, something might be wrong, and they went to check up on him. And here, they spotted his jacket still hung up. Unusual. They went deeper.
Dun, dun,
However, there was
dun.
only one person small enough to make it as far as the turnaround room. This was a 17-year-old Jewel Estes. He refused to go into the squeeze, but if he yelled, Floyd would probably hear him.
Floyd!
And Collins yelled back.
Yes, I'm here.
Estes emerges from the cave.
Okay, we know he's trapped, and we know where he is.
So, a whole troop of locals show up. Out of my way. Say a bunch of men who would confidently charge into the cave. But once they reach the final squeeze...
Nope. Nope. Nope.
They would charge straight back out again, saying things like,
I can't blame
There's no
them
way any
though.
man could fit in there.
out of my way, they would say, as they were heading in the reverse direction.
Otherwise known as away from the tiny hole, like a sane person.
So a few more hours passed. Word would spread around Cave City and the neighboring areas. Slowly, a crowd formed outside Sand Cave.
Floyd in the cave. Floyd in the cave. Oh my god. Floyd
Oh my god, a cave.
Over in Louisville, Floyd's 22-year-old brother, Homer, he gets a phone call.
Hello? I see. My brother. He's trapped in a cave? I'm on my way.
Life or death? I see,
Homer
I
jumps on a
see.
coach and makes his way to Floyd's cave.
Hi, Muckabee.
Homer struts up to
On
the
my
scene.
lap.
He walks past the growing crowd of unhelpful onlookers and makes a beeline for the cave to save his brother. In he goes, down the chute, through the narrowing passages, down on his hands and knees towards the turnaround room. And when he arrives, he does not hesitate. He squeezes into the hole, scrambles his way through to the ledge on the other side. He sees Floyd below and slides down to meet him.
Floyd!
Sup?
Right, probably wasn't that casual.
What's up, bro?
Oh, thank God you're here.
Some emotional support purrs for you.
Homer took a moment to shine his light around the area and assess the situation. It was not good. This rock formation is going to prove almost impossible to work around. Alright, so let's have a look.
Kitty, it is
Floyd
Kitty.
is here. The rock is here, pinning his ankle. He's surrounded by rubble, and there's a pocket of gravel above him ready to fall. However, because this opening is so small, there are only two viable ways of reaching Floyd and that gravel. Option 1, the most obvious, feet first. But if you do this, you have to kind of squat,
that's
and
kind of
your own
awkward.
torso obstructs access to the rubble. Otherwise, option 2, come down head first.
Oh, that's
that
terrifying.
will give you better access, but you're trying to
That
move
looks so
hundreds of
awkward.
pounds of gravel upside down. Worse yet, there's barely an inch around Collins on either side, so good luck getting your arm down near Floyd's ankle to actually free him from the wedged rock. Homer whips around and yells,
Quickly, some food and drink.
They send it through. But first, Homer gives Floyd a litre of coffee to warm him up. Then, as many sausage sandwiches as he can stomach. He manages to down 9 of them. Dietary advice has changed since the 1920s.
Feeling better?
Much better.
Then Homer went to task. He began removing rocks and gravel, tiny scoop at a time, with the help of an old syrup can. For the next 8 hours he toiled.
What a
First
good
with
brother,
hands,
though. What
then,
an
once enough
amazing
was clear,
brother.
using a crowbar
That's
to
an
scoop
amazing
behind
brother.
his brother, scraping away sharp protrusions as he went. It was slow progress. Virtually futile. While holding up his body weight with one arm, he would have to use the other to scoop away gravel.
Wow.
Then watch as new gravel would suddenly fall from
Oh,
above
God.
and undo all the work. Homer stayed for as long as he could, but after several hours, he was ragged. His teeth chattered uncontrollably, his lungs choked with dust, and the skin on his fingers shredded from the rubble. However, something new. By the time Homer reached outside, he was surprised to see a mob of approximately 100 men and women standing around, drinking, squabbling, and talking big game about how they too were going to save Floyd. The press was also present to help people gawk from afar. Homer shunned them all and rested up in a small tent in front of the cave. Strangers immediately crowded around him to ask innocent but, frankly, frustrating questions and offer
rude.
unsolicited, obvious advice as well as wildly impractical solutions. Listen, you just have to untie his shoes. Free the foot, free the man, right fellas?
No. Let's hire a contortionist. We get a hammer and a chisel. We'll have him back by supper.
We should jerk him off, right guys? Alright, I made that third day up, but you get the idea. A
The
lot of these guys are
contortionist
drunk, by
one,
the way,
that
so
one,
the discussions very quickly went from
it's
0
kinda
to
wild,
100.
though.
Hey, new idea.
Hey, can we just go to the local circus and borrow a contortionist and shove them down this cave? I know that's not what they're saying, but they make it sound like it'd be so easy to convince somebody who doesn't go to caves to go into this cave and free this man.
How about dynamite? We'll simply blow him out.
Dynamite?
One group
No,
formed,
stop
insisting
it.
it was a great idea. And another saying, no, the explosion will kill him, and the weight of the new rocks will surely crush him. They shouted at each other for a while, until someone suggested, hey, how about gas torches? We can use acetylene
Gas
torches to cut
torches?
through the rock and make the hole bigger. No, that'll cook him, or the gas will fill the cave and kill everyone inside. They fought over that too. But by far the most common suggestion was to simply cut off the foot. Never mind that the foot itself was unreachable, and never mind that he'd lose so much blood he might not make it back to the surface, and never minding even more that Floyd was strongly reluctant to the idea.
Whatever you do, don't cut my foot off.
Homer could have easily ignored all of this
Remove
pointless
the
bickering,
fur.
except
Remove
that
the
not
fur.
one of them would just brave the damn cave and continue shoveling away the gravel. The formula was always the same. Bold, fearless men would strut into the cave with sandwiches and blankets, then reach the turnaround room and immediately lose their nerve, then dump it all outside of the hole, and then return back outside and go, oh, absolutely. No, he says, thanks for the food. Thank you so much. Yum, yum. No one would go through that squeeze. Dozens more men would try.
Wait.
And go, oh, absolutely. No, he says, thanks for the food. Thank you so much. Yum, yum. No one.
This is a hole?
Would go through that squeeze.
This is a hole. Oh, no. You could not get me to do that. I would not. Oh my god. That is terrifying. I know it's not as small as it looks because, like, it looks smaller than these bottles, but it looks pretty small. I know it's just because it's further back, but it still looks super tiny. Oh my god. My leg would barely fit through that. I don't know if I could get my head through that. Not my head. Psh, my hips.
Dozens more men would try. All of them would fail. February 2nd, 9 a.m. So far, Homer has been the only person who has been face to face with Floyd. And that would continue to be true until here we are at the Louisville Courier. There's a spirited young newshawk named William Miller. He's talking to his boss, and he's trying to convince him that it's a great idea for him to cover the story of the man trapped in the cave.
Listen up, boss. I'm hearing talk of a man in a cave. He's stuck down there, and I want to get down there too. Get to the nitty-gritty, you hear?
This is an opportunity for some good PR, Miller. I'm in. But I want us to sponsor that rescue. Picture this. Man saved from cave by Louisville Courier, the finest newspaper in the state. That'll drum up plenty of interest.
24-carat idea, boss. I'll make it happen. I'll get down there toot sweet.
So off Miller goes to Floyd's cave. Back over at the cave, Homer is sitting outside trying to recuperate. As Miller wanders up, Homer is not interested in giving an interview. He wants someone to help. So as Miller asks questions, Homer tries his best to show contempt.
Yeah. Sure.
Frustrated, Homer bluntly says,
Listen, you want more information? The hole's right behind me. Why don't you go take a look yourself?
Miller thinks for a moment, then says, yeah, all right. He grabs a lantern and crouches down to enter the cave.
If he makes it through that one hole.
Cold water filled his shoes. He was stepping in newly formed puddles. That water is coming from the inside of the cave as the temperature slowly increases and the frost inside melts. The stable environment of the cave is starting to change. That is thanks in no small part to the growing crowd of gawkers. To stay warm, they were building fires and hanging around the entrance of the cave to shelter from the elements. But nonetheless,
they really
Miller
are gawkers at that point. None of them are actually helping.
That final squeeze, and he's there. He stops. He takes a moment and decides to call out to Floyd.
Floyd!
Hearing there is someone on the other side, he feels ashamed not to try. Into the dark he went. Through the 9-inch squeeze.
Oh my god.
The crystal gypsum cuts into his elbows and tugs at his clothes. He gets snagged.
Oh no.
He's spluttering through the pools of muddy water. Is he gonna get stuck too? He stops, collects himself, and pushes on. He can barely inhale. If he gets stuck in here, he can only hope that someone else can come in from behind and pull him out by the legs. But eventually, he makes it through. Fantastic. He is now on his belly, looking down at Floyd. He sat right next to Floyd, ready to interview him. But Floyd didn't really answer any of his questions. At the moment, he is sitting in a pool of water that is 12 degrees, slowly sapping his body temperature. He is dying from exposure. The cold is diminishing Floyd's mental faculties, and he can barely make sentences. There's nothing Miller can do, so he hurriedly turns around.
I can't, I know he's also, he said that his mental faculties weren't working as well, but if I was in this scenario, I don't know if I would, I feel like I would try to give an interview just because I would want my final words to be like a warning to other people.
He worked his way back through the squeeze, past the turnaround room, and out into the daylight. Homer turns to Miller. Proof that he had made it all the way to Floyd is soaked onto his mud-stained clothes. No longer frustrated with the young reporter, instead, he excitedly runs over to him.
You and me. Together, we can get Floyd out of there.
Now, there were two people who could help rescue Floyd. Now, helping with the rescue was not the only thing that Miller did for Floyd. Perhaps even more crucially, his reporting was responsible for turning Floyd into
Leia,
a
this
nationwide
isn't even the worst
story.
part. Oh
Miller took
no.
interviews, relayed
God.
first-person accounts, and would spend many hours with Floyd himself in that cave. He gave an insight into the story that only a first-person account could, and in turn, gave the public a figure who they would deeply relate to. Updates to the story would be printed in over 1,000 local and national newspapers. You couldn't escape it. It was also the era when radio became a regular feature for regular Americans. Radio allowed something new: hourly updates, letting people get engrossed into the story. So, mostly thanks to Miller, the story of Floyd over the next week would grow and grow. And everybody wanted to know, will this man make it? Back outside the cave, someone new entered the story. Robert Burton.
I feel like it's kind of like crazy how often that happens, like people getting drawn into other people's stories as it's happening and like wanting to see the outcome of it. I feel like a lot of times people, maybe it's just like a people thing, but people want to see like a hopeful story and they want to know that nobody around them also knows the ending, if that makes sense. They want to be right there with everyone, like when it's happening. Like the same thing is true in like fiction shows and stuff. Like even for me, like when a show is like premiering live, I feel a lot more part of the community, like knowing that everyone's finding out the same time I am about stuff and that I'm not like behind. People just want the tea. They do. That too.
He would become the third man to reach Floyd, a firefighter from Louisville. Thin-framed, but muscular. He got scratched up pretty good and soaked by the pooling water. But he made it through with little fuss, and he confidently lowered himself down to Floyd's position. It was not an optimistic sight. Floyd's condition was deteriorating.
Well, we've got a heck of a problem here, but I think I can get you out with a rope.
Floyd nods in approval.
Go on.
We might just pull your bloody leg off.
Just pull my leg off then. Get me out of here.
Burton returned to the surface and faced the crowd. He announced,
We will attempt a rope pull.
I don't know if that's a good idea. You're just gonna tear his foot off.
Yeah, hold on. What about the sharp rocks? Rake him through all that and there'll barely be a body left to bring to the surface. A physician stepped forward with authority. The ligaments in the foot are strong, but if you pull on the torso without a harness, all you'll likely do is tear his internal organs. But Floyd is dying of exposure down there. The situation is becoming desperate. Burton put caution to the side.
The time for strategy is over. Now we try brute force.
I mean, yeah, you kind of have to at a certain point. Whoa, so many days. Oh my god, that gave me a heart attack. Oh my god. I'm also scared of the ocean, so I hate this part just as much. Oh god.
Floyd! Floyd! We're here! We're gonna get you out of here!
After 79 hours in the cold water, he is delirious, fading in and out of consciousness.
I'm gonna put the special
it's symbolic
harness around
of what's
you,
to come.
Burton and Miller. They're
well,
here too.
I kind of figured that the chain was supposed to be the rock, like pinning his foot down, like the chain around his ankle. I think the rest of it, like you said, is symbolic of what to come, so it will make more sense.
Got 3 more boys right up the
That
cave.
hand terrified me in the beginning, though.
As hard as they can to get you out of here.
We're gonna
Floyd
tear
was
you in
frightened.
2.
I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna hurt.
No one knew quite how this would go. Floyd was given some food, some coffee, a large swig of whiskey, and a sedative. That sedative would keep him calm if his ankle bone is snapped or the skin on his foot is peeled off. Floyd took the opportunity to appreciate being surrounded by friends and family.
at least they gave him a sedative.
Do it.
All right, strap him up.
Homer attached a harness. He ties on the rope. Miller gives the signal.
Ready?
Burden gives the final all clear.
Ready?
Everybody braced for the tug of war. Cave versus man. The winner gets Floyd.
3,
I thought
2,
I just keep expecting him to call him
1.
Wendigoon.
Oh!
The force of 6 men pulled against the clutches of the cave. Floyd began to scream. His body was being pulled up from the rubble. The gravel was beginning to shift. Burden's calls echo through the cave.
Oh, harder!
Floyd screamed harder as well. All right, so Floyd is trapped laying down like this. But the pulling of the rope wrenches him up like this. His torso was being compressed and bent against the ceiling of the trap. It would kill him. Floyd's screaming intensified, and through gasps was begging them to stop. But it did not stop. The agony continued. On and on, with no progress.
Enough! Enough! You guys are killing him!
Homer quickly spun around and started pulling against the other men. He threw his legs onto the rocks and propelled himself backwards, 1 man versus 5.
I said stop!
Coursing with adrenaline, he pulled the rope free from their clasp. The tug of war was over. The cave had won. Floyd fell back down.
Oh.
Homer, Miller, Burden, and the other 3 men were flat on their backs, panting for breath. The cave would not let this man go.
The cave even looks like a mouth with the ice on it.
The situation sank in, and all they could do was leave for now and rest. Outside, the number of spectators had increased to 200. They buzzed and asked useless questions, and Homer walked dejectedly past them. He sat by thinking what he could do. The cause seemed hopeless.
Homer?
Then, someone showed up who could turn things around. He looked up to see a childhood friend of both his and Floyd's, Johnny Gerald. He was just the man for the job. He was an experienced caver, and he was an experienced cave-trapped person rescuer.
All right, let me go see him. Well, look who it is.
Floyd perked up immediately,
Yay.
thrilled to see Gerald. The sparkle from Floyd's gold tooth could be seen in his smile.
All right, let's see what we can do.
Gerald jumped down. And then, for the next 3 hours, Gerald went back to the original plan of digging away the rocks. His stamina was good, and progress was surprisingly good as well. For several more hours, he continued, just moving stone after stone. New one would fall in its place, and he'd move that one too. By midnight, he had enough room to shift position and clear some of the gravel that was at each side of Floyd's body. Gerald would spend several more hours scooping. And it worked. Slowly, more and more of Floyd's body was coming free from the rubble. The lower shoulders, his chest, even his hips and thighs. It was incredible progress, but Gerald wasn't done yet. He kept going until practically all of the rubble, except a few harder to reach piles down by his legs, remained. The relief from the weight made it significantly easier for Floyd to breathe and flex his limbs. Over the course of those few hours, Gerald managed to scoop away more than 1,000 pounds of debris. But there was still a lot more to go. And that rock by Floyd's foot was still holding him in place. By 2 a.m., Gerald was spent. He needed rest, and he was ready to head back outside.
Floyd, tomorrow, you're gonna be a free man.
No, don't
Now here you might
jinx it.
think that things will become straightforward. They did not. Now that space had been cleared, Burden became convinced that if he could get down that passage again, he could free Floyd with another rope pull. Fate deciding with both feet or just one. So Burden marches up to the cave once again, but when he tried to enter, they shoved him in the other direction. The crowd was acting as a sort of phalanx, and anyone who tried to get in was told to get lost. They had been specifically instructed to not let anyone in, and they were especially opposed to Burden making another rope pull after word spread about the disaster of the first attempt. He tried to reason with them.
Let me try the rope pull again. It'll work this time.
Come
but they would not hear it.
Let me try again.
Of the 3 other people who could reach him, Gerald and Homer are out exhausted and sick, which leaves only Miller, who is tied up with work. With Burden barred from entering, Floyd was left on his own, wondering why it was that no one would visit him.
Hello? Is anyone there? Help! Hey! Anyone out there?
Now, the work Miller was doing was handing over reports to his boss about Sand Cave. Those reports would be fed through the news grapevine to the Associated Press, and the Associated Press would send that out to its very large affiliate network. The word was spreading about Floyd. By afternoon, Miller was done with his work and he hurried back to the cave. So he gets inside and, his eyes didn't have to work half as hard to adjust to the dark. Someone had installed electric lights from the entrance right all the way down to Floyd. Miller popped down to the lower level.
Ah, Floyd! Fancy seeing you here, buddy.
When Miller reached Floyd, he took the final bulb and attached it to his collar to keep him warm. Then, reusing that syrup tin, he started offloading gravel into buckets. Those buckets were then passed up and down the cabin, like an assembly line. And so it went on for the next few hours, until he was too tired and needed to rest. Miller then took some time to have a bit of a one-on-one with Floyd. He said, "You know, there are a lot of people in the news that are reading about you and have you in their prayers. Is there anything you want me to relay to them?" Floyd had been in that cave for over 100 hours now, and seeing everyone working together, Floyd was overcome with a sense of hope and relief. Floyd wanted to pass on a message. Here is what he is quoted in the newspaper.
Oh, we get actual quote.
I believed I would go to heaven. I can feel that I'm to be taken out alive and with both my feet. I kept thinking, what would happen if the rock above me would fall? It caused me to shudder. I kept thinking to drive my mind to something else, but it wasn't much use. I couldn't do much to help those who came to help me, but I knew that a lot of people were willing to do all in their power. It gave me courage. Tuesday morning, I thought to myself, 4 days down here, and no nearer freedom than I was on the first day. How will it end? Will I get out? I couldn't think of it. I have faced death before. It doesn't frighten me, but it is so long. Tell them I am not going to give up. Tell them I'm going to fight and be patient and never forget them.
Aww.
Meanwhile, news of the incident kept growing. The entire country was captivated by Floyd's story. Crowds huddled around newspaper stands each morning and afternoon, waiting to get any new drips of information. It became a water cooler topic. Did you catch the latest episode of Game of Caves? He had the prayer power of practically every church in the county. Even the upper echelons of government were keeping tabs on Floyd. Congress halted session to get their little updates, and even the president, Calvin Coolidge, took a glancing interest. By the end, the Floyd Collins incident would explode into the third largest non-political story between World War I and World War II. All of this excitement brought an inundation of people to Cave City. Old population, 690. Yawn. New population, 10,000. The bank vaults ran empty as people withdrew cash to spend around town, but they wouldn't have much to spend it on because restaurants didn't even have enough stock to feed all the new customers. Practically every hotel room in the county was taken, so residents capitalized with a 1920s version of Airbnb and charged outrageous fees to offer places to sleep on their bedroom floor or in mattress-lined bathtubs. and 4,500 automobiles impatiently sat, backed up for 2 miles from 20 different states to drive onto the Collins farm, churning up all the pristine green fields with their tires and turning them into
now
brown
they can't farm the land.
paddocks. Deep below all those tourists, there's Miller, trying to free Floyd. Alright, a little bit of setup. Floyd, Miller, some remaining rubble, rock. For anyone to lift the rock by hand would be impossible because Floyd's body obstructs the hole. Miller grabs a crowbar and shoves it through the gap. Now he's going to lever it off Floyd's foot. Cool. The crowbar is now primed in place. Next, he takes a jack. He positions it on top of the crowbar so that it will be forced against the ceiling.
Okay.
However, problem. That jack is too big. It doesn't fit. Miller yells up the tunnel for a smaller one, but this took some time. And when it arrived, too small, won't reach the ceiling. But instead of sending for another one, Miller takes 2 blocks of wood and bolsters them underneath the crowbar.
That's smart.
Right, so the crowbar now sits higher,
That's
it
smart.
fulcrums against the blocks, and the jack is sitting on top. All Miller
This
has
is
to
gonna
do
hurt.
is expand
Oh no,
the
it's
jack,
next to his,
which he
like,
will
not
do
on it.
using this spanner, holding it at the very tips of his fingers. Sounds easy. It's not.
I was
But
gonna
that's the
say it
plan.
doesn't sound easy though.
Let's get him out of there. He turned the wrench. The jack expanded, and the crowbar took strain. The whole thing slid apart with a pang.
No.
Floyd wasn't hurt, but Miller was contorting and exerting his whole body from back to fingertip. They tried again. Same result. Undeterred, Miller caught his breath and gave it another shot. He slowly turned the jack. Pressure building. And this time, Miller could feel the rock move. It bloody moved. He kept turning the wrench and the rock moved a little more. His hands were shaking, knees weak, his arms are heavy.
Spaghetti.
Pang. One of the wood blocks flew out. It all scattered apart. The rock painfully slammed back down on Colin's foot.
You'll get it next time, Miller. Try again.
Miller kept
They
on
should give
trying.
him more of those
Countless
sedative.
attempts. He kept pushing himself deeper into the trap, finding new approaches. Damn the blocks. No, try the blocks again. Clear some more rubble.
They need to nail the
Floyd,
box
unable
together.
to help physically, is supporting him in spirit at least, cheering him on.
Yay.
And Miller kept going and going and going until he had nothing left. For the next 4 hours he tried. No progress. Miller was exhausted. He couldn't do this on his own, but he was the only one slim enough to get in through the gap. The group decided to concede for now and return to the surface. They would take just a small break, but it looked to everyone like there was a clear way to get this man out.
Do not fool.
So Miller and Burden crawl back through the mud and the wines of the cave. As they made their way through, the cave was visibly sagging. The ceiling seemed lower. Parts were harder to navigate than before. Doubly so with their bruised and rock-shredded hands. They stepped outside and took in the fresh country air. But as their eyes adjusted to the light, they saw something new. A man named Henry Carmichael was standing in front of a sizable crowd of engineers in hard hats and soldiers in military uniform. Now, Henry is the superintendent of the Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company. The engineers are his employees. And the men in military...
No, they need to make dents for the jack and crowbar to hold positioning dents in the wood. Oh, that's a smart idea too. That's a smart idea too. I like your idea. I like your idea.
Garb are the National Guard. Now, Carmichael has been quietly looking at the situation from afar, and he is thoroughly unimpressed. This is no rescue operation. Once Miller and Co. call it quits, Carmichael had 2 of his employees do a proper survey of the cave and see if it was suitable to bring in his whole team of men. The 2 surveyors go in. As the passage led down to Floyd, it was showing alarming signs of deterioration. You could see the splitting of the rock above.
Oh no.
Boards were slipping out of place or splintering. Small rocks tumbled down the walls. They soon came back with a report. It was not good. Alright, so the following is a recounting of events from one of Carmichael's men, Casey Jones. Casey and another worker spent about an hour in the cave, surveying its condition, looking at the boards, the ceiling, the stability of the walls, Casey continued deeper towards Floyd. He was fighting against his nerves. The shifting of the rock pinged his every instinct.
I feel like it's especially hard when like you're a surveyor or like a safety checker, because you know exactly what can go wrong and all the signs that things are going wrong, and you have to fight against everything, all your teaching, everything. You can't logic your way out of it because logic is telling you not to go in deeper.
To flee. But he could hear Floyd calling out for help in the distance. Summoning all of his courage, he pushed himself on, through the final squeeze and over the ledge that looked down on Floyd.
Oh no.
Rubble continued to drop from the ceiling, bouncing all around him. The ceiling felt closer to him than it was before, but maybe that was just the dark playing tricks?
Please, come down.
I can't right now, Floyd, but I will when I get back.
Now, Casey is being pulled in two directions.
No, come back, come on. Let's get out of here already.
Please, I'm so thirsty.
Okay.
Casey climbed down next to Floyd.
Quick, drink,
said Casey as he tried to pour some coffee into Floyd's mouth. But
yeah,
Floyd
coffee's
turned
great
his
for
head
hydration.
And kept his lips pursed. The rocks were falling at a faster rate now, the loud cracking out above, sounding like thunder. In that moment, Casey realized what was happening. Floyd was not really asking for a drink. Floyd knew that a cave-in was inevitable. Scared and approaching his 5th day trapped, he was completely at his wit's end. He knew he was about to be trapped in that cave, and he didn't want to be trapped alone.
Oh God, that's
sake,
terrifying.
Casey, come on, you're gonna get us killed.
Stay with me, please. Don't leave.
Casey quickly turned away and scrambled back up the ledge. He made his way back through the final squeeze, his limbs scrambling against the cave walls. It seemed as if everything around him was shrinking. He made it out, and he joined his co-worker. They both turned around and watched on in horror as the yellow of the bowl was being swallowed by the dark. Rubble fell fast and heavy until no light could be seen at all. Rocks blocked out Floyd's panicked cries. The one route to Floyd was now sealed shut, a tomb of rock and dust.
Oh my God.
It's morning.
That's terrifying.
Burden and Miller jump out of their tents, ready.
He survived way longer than I would have, because like I would not have been able to survive. I would have had a heart attack. And like the guy realizing that he's trying to keep him there longer, that's wow. Like that just shows how far like his sanity is going at just the thought of being alone that long again. All of this wouldn't happen if the gawkers didn't make fires. True.
Ready for the day. They're feeling optimistic. Today will be the day that they get Floyd out of there. And they're packing some new tools to help them with the job. Wire to wrap around the wooden blocks, that'll stop them from slipping. And a blowtorch to carve away some of the rock, make the hole a bit bigger. But when Miller got to the turnaround room, all of that optimism left him. The entrance to the squeeze was now just a pile of debris.
They didn't even tell them.
Miller froze, staring at it for a long while. Then he sighed and did the only thing he could think. Make an opening through that rubble. But the more he raked away, the more fell in its place. It was never-ending. He persisted, ignoring the danger around him. Thud. A large piece of debris landed on him. Luckily, it was only dried clay. He is uninjured. But recognizing the danger, Miller returned to the surface. 15 minutes later, he emerged from the cave with a bloodied-up nose and bruises down his back and shoulders. Burden caught sight and races over to him. Miller just says, "For God's sake, don't let anyone go back in there." Miller leaves the site. Burden doesn't know what to do. Over at the house, Homer is terribly ill and out of action, and that just leaves Gerald. Now, he comes marching up when he hears the news,
Gerald,
and
the
he
goat.
is livid. He told the crowds to keep away or the whole thing would cave in, and they didn't listen. Then exactly that thing happened. And what were they supposed to do now? The rest of the day was spent squabbling and bickering over who was to blame. You caused the cave-in. No, you caused the cave-in.
Oh, cave your bloody head in, mate.
And Floyd spent the rest of that day alone.
He's still alive?
The surveyors continued checking the cave throughout the day. At 6 p.m., Carmichael had ordered everyone to an assembly. Gerald took the floor. He was going to give this one last shot. Gerald addressed the crowd.
Listen up. There's death down there. The walls and ceilings are crumbling. Unless you're determined to take the biggest chance you ever took in your life, tell me now and stay outside.
Next, they told all the
Don't even
walkers
stay
to get
outside,
the hell
just
out of
leave.
the cave. Clear off. And so, Gerald went in and out of that cave half a dozen times, working away at the rubble, blocking access to Floyd, leaving only when he suspected another cave-in or to get food and water.
Gerald's amazing.
Men on the sidelines were
We
supplying
stand Gerald.
timber. A group of men helped Gerald to prop up the ceiling and guard against further collapse. Gerald toiled away at the pile, eager to reach his friend. He worked steadily, mindful of the danger poised right above him. Bit by bit, he reduced that pile until a light. He called out, yelling updates through the hole.
Bad news. We can't reach you. But hold on. We're coming.
Gerald continued. The pile got smaller still. The gap was large enough now that Gerald thought he might be able to fit.
Okay, that's enough. Floyd, I'm going for now. But when I get back, I'm gonna get you out of there.
Gerald scrambled back out the cave, over to the men, and through panted breaths he said,
Gather the equipment, and in an hour's time, it's gonna be me and Floyd coming out of that cave.
That's so confident. That's so cool.
Gerald entered Sand Cave for his final time. The walls had been reinforced, but mud and water was accumulating everywhere. He waded through it and pressed on past the danger of the sagging ceiling. With determination on his face and a grease gun clutched in his right hand, he scrambled towards Floyd. But before the final squeeze, he stopped. It was all gone. Another cave-in, even worse than the first. He thought about how he could have been on the other side of that rubble. His mind raced, weighing out what to do. He shouted,
Floyd!
As a not-so-subtle reminder of the danger he was in, a rock fell from the ceiling and cracked Gerald across the head.
Ow.
Luckily, just a small one. He felt around for blood and kept shouting.
Floyd!
He could definitely hear a voice.
I don't know if I could stay in the cave after this. Like, Gerald's such a goat for all of this, but like, he's basically knowing that every time he enters a cave, he's risking his life. Like, it's a pretty high chance of collapse. It's not even like just like a small chance. It's actively collapsing. It's actively collapsing.
But it was faint. Gerald was scared that this was Floyd's last shot at rescue, and he threw himself against the pile and pulled it away with finger and nail, launching the debris behind him with force, tearing at the pile like a man on fire. Dust bellowed, rocks flew, and he kept shouting out for Floyd as he went.
Floyd!
Until finally, the cave had had enough. It let loose a large, jagged rock aimed straight at Gerald, striking him on his back. Gerald stumbled out of that cave, injured and defeated.
Wow.
Only after the cave-ins did they start to think about all of the things that they could have done.
Wait, why didn't we rig a portable telephone line? That would have been incredibly simple here in 1925.
Yeah, why have we been running in and out to deliver updates?
Why didn't we give him an AM radio? He could have had something to listen to and receive messages of support from the public.
Wait, why don't we rig up a tarpaulin so we could lift his torso up so he wouldn't be slowly dying of exposure?
Oh God, why didn't we run a feeding tube? That's also a technology we have in 1925.
All too late. Now what? The one route to get to Floyd is closed forever. That meant two options. Number one, capitulation. surrender him to the cave. Well, number 2. Dig down from directly above Floyd.
Oh?
Now, the prospect of digging from above seemed almost fanciful. At least, it did in the beginning. But luckily, they had some help.
The military.
Owing to Miller's reporting, Floyd had become practically the most famous person in the country. The rescue had become a high priority for the governor of Kentucky. Lieutenant General Denhart enters the scene. He's been updated on the situation, and following shortly behind him is a small army of miners and engineers. He declared to the despondent crowd, "Gentlemen, I am here on behalf of the governor. The purse strings of Kentucky are open. Take this blank check and bring that man out alive."
Whoa, that's wild.
Floyd, in that cold, wet confine, could not have imagined the scale of the operation that was going on 55 feet above him. Authorities assumed control of Colin's rescue. Denhart gave Carmichael control over the site, and Carmichael raced to get to work. Carmichael rallied up his men, his fleet of expensive high-tech machinery. Professional groups were brought in from all across the state. No longer was this the ad hoc effort of a few individuals. It was a professional and organized rescue. No more squabbling and standing around. Everyone knew what they had to do, and they were working as fast as they could. But just as hopes were rising, they were once again dashed against the rocks. They had all of this state-of-the-art machinery shipped in and assembled by the engineers and rearing to go. And it was all worthless. See, the problem is, the cave drew air into it. These diesel-powered engines pumped out enormous volumes of choking exhaust. Within a day's operation, the cave would be filled with carbon monoxide, and Floyd would be dead from asphyxiation. Just as quickly as solutions would arise, the cave would parry them away. It refused to let this man go. This useless machinery was now blocking the path to Floyd, which means they would have to spend the next couple of hours disassembling all of it
and it's more weight on top of him.
Because they're about to dig a 55-foot pit the old-fashioned way, by hand. Carmichael's expertise was in quarries, but the principles transferred over to caving and digging holes. He did some quick back-of-the-envelope math. I've got 75 men, they can dig at 2 feet per hour, and we have to go 55 feet deep. That means we can get to those men in roughly 30 hours, give or take. Now, is it possible that Floyd could survive for another 30 hours? Absolutely. Let's go.
Oh, really?
4 men started at a great pace. The soil was soft and easy to dig. But as they got deeper, it became more difficult. The deeper the shaft, the narrower it became. Soon, instead of 4 men, they could only fit 2. Carmichael understood well that this was a race against time, so it was important that these 2 men were working at full capacity. Carmichael had a queue of men on the sidelines, poised to dig, and the moment that either of the 2 men in the hole slowed down, they pulled them out and threw in a new one.
That's efficient, though.
Progress slowed the deeper they
went.
Don't
even let them have the chance of getting tired.
They reached rock, and one of the men would have to work a pickaxe, leaving only one to shovel. At this depth, rubble couldn't just be flung into a pile. They had to start loading it into buckets, which would have to be pulled to the surface on ropes.
The movie 127 Hours. I mean,
were ready with
127 hours.
That downfield.
Is there a movie called that?
Time passed. Hours passed. Night went to day. The day was hot. This was yet another problem, because it's early February, there's tons of ice still in the ground, and its exposure to the midday sun was causing it to become unstable, and the ground was becoming sodden as a result. Progress slowed once again, just half a foot per hour. There was little for Colin's friends and family to do, but watch the clock and pray. Interestingly, though, there were a lot of people on the sidelines. Floyd wouldn't have believed the scene above him. Practically everything but a Ferris wheel. Food stalls were set up to cash in on the crowds. Families and church groups picnicked in the fields. Despite prohibition, moonshiners showed up to sell jugs with all of those X's written on them. There was even a bloody juggler.
This is literally like a monkey's paw situation. Like, he was saying that in the beginning, he was wishing for the cave to be like something big and for people to come visit it. This is literally like a monkey paw.
I won't stop juggling till he's free. And old man Lee was there, walking around, shaking his jar, and soliciting donations. But where were Homer and Burden and Miller during all of this? Okay, let's back up a bit.
Okay.
People did not properly understand exactly how Floyd was trapped, and the news didn't help much either. So the obvious question started to arise. Why hasn't he been rescued yet? Just clear some gravel or pull a rope. How is this so hard? Motive was attributed.
I heard they didn't even want to have him rescued at all.
I heard that they're doing all of this for publicity.
And Lee's activity of soliciting donations, remember from before, further inflamed rumours.
I bet Floyd isn't even trapped in there.
These were all real rumours, and they got worse.
You know what? I've heard he comes out at night, and then he just goes back in the morning.
What?
Other rumours included...
I heard that after Floyd went into the cave, someone murdered him.
Others said...
What?
I think they're withholding food and water from him, so he dies.
Oh my god.
This whole thing is a fraud.
As time went on, it was harder and harder to ignore the hoax claims. Then, people started to form righteous mobs, claiming the whole thing was a fraud, and they started to get nasty. In fact, 2 people even went to the telegraph office and pretended to be Floyd sending telegrams to his mother, who, by the way, died several years ago. Here's what it said. Quote, "Please contradict statement."
Man, people have always sucked, haven't they? People have always sucked. This isn't a new thing because of the internet. People have always sucked.
Statements that I am buried alive in sand cave. Stop. Tell mother I am all right. Stop. Am coming home. Stop. Floyd Collins. Naturally, the AP published these telegrams unquestioningly, and now word is out to the press that he isn't actually in the cave after all. That made the authorities look foolish, and it could not go on. So, a hasty court-martial was arranged, and Homer, Miller, and Gerald were summoned. They hold one session on Monday and another on Tuesday. Lee and everyone else is cleared of charges, a retraction is written, and things carry on. The men at the dig were busy as ever. They set up pumps to mitigate the water in the shaft. Men continued working in shifts and carrying away the earth. Here they are with strips of lumber to shore up the walls. They were just short of halfway, and their rate of...
We don't need Twitter to spread fake news. Well, Twitter doesn't exist anymore. It's all X now.
clearing material had slowed to a mere 4 inches per hour. It was at that point Carmichael went, "Yeah, okay, sod the cavers, try the dynamite." But it hardly made a dent, and it risked causing the shaft to collapse. But despite all of these challenges, there was an optimism in the air, because everyone was keen for their turn to dig. And because they had one more thing to latch onto. He is probably still alive. Now, how do they know that? Okay, so remember that light bulb around Floyd's neck? Well, it's powered by a simple copper wire. Bare copper wire is subject to very minute fluctuations in resistance. So, an engineer rigs up a radio amplifier to this wire to read the current and see those small fluctuations.
Wow, people are so smart.
About 20
people
per minute.
People are so smart.
The rate of steady breathing. As his chest expands and contracts, they can read it from this device. And so, they kept going. And going. And going. 30 hours was the original estimate. Now 144 hours had come and gone, and they were only at 44 feet. Then rain fell. Rain that mixed with dirt to make mud, much of which then froze to make ice. Ice which expanded and damaged the integrity of the shaft walls.
Everything is working
Slowing
against
down with
him.
every hour, they continued. Many more hours passed, and they were getting close. But it was now 15 days since Floyd was first stuck in that cave, and people had mostly lost hope. That excitement in the newspapers was tempering down. Visitors began clearing out from Cave City. Many still held on to hope.
They're losing interest
but their
in
final
saving
lifeline,
him.
that light bulb, had burnt out. And it wasn't possible to do any more readings on the radio amplifier without it. No one knew if Floyd was still alive.
Oh.
Another 51 hours would pass before, finally, they reached the 60-foot depth.
I'm in! Chisel!
A chisel is handed down. At 1:30 p.m. on Monday, February 16th, Sand Cave would open once again. Floyd had been pinned in that cave for 17 days. 12 spent without food, survivable. 12 without water, likely not survivable. The light bulb, a vital source of warmth, burnt out 4 days ago. But maybe the moisture from the dripping of the cave walls provided him with some sustenance? There are stories of people surviving harsher extremes. A few final rocks were moved to allow Ed Brenner to squeeze in. Everybody stood by, absolutely silent, peering into that hole. Ed scanned the opening with his flashlight, listening carefully for movement. Then, head first, he worked his way in. The flashlight reflected dimly off the rock walls, but then caught the reflection of something gold. That golden flicker was not the light bulb. It was the glistening of light reflecting off a gold tooth. His mouth hung open. Floyd was dead.
No, I was so locked in.
Brennan was helped out of the cave, and he delivered the news.
Oh my god.
Dead.
Oh
A coroner
my god.
would later state that Floyd succumbed to exposure, and that they had missed him by just 3 days.
So I kind of thought he died because I know there's a cave called Floyd's Tomb. But I was really hoping that I was misremembering. I was really hoping that I was wrong. I was really hoping that that wasn't the case. I had so much hope. I feel like I got set up. I got set up to hope, and then my hopes got crushed.
About the same time that the light bulb had gone out. When the light bulb went out, so too did his one source of warmth. If it had held out, Collins might have as well.
Aww.
But what would they do now with the body? The shaft walls were ready to fall inwards, and risking lives to remove a corpse was seen as just irresponsible. So it was decided by the authorities. Floyd will stay in that cave. Now, this did not sit well with the family, but what could they do? The next day, they planned the funeral. The town emptied of people, and the shaft, with Floyd at the bottom, was filled back in. But that's not quite the end of the story. But if you hung on for this long, keep holding on, because things are going to continue to get interesting. But first, let me do a wrap-up of where everyone is and all that stuff. Context. The Collins family already had financial hardship. Lee Collins wasn't able to raise much money from the donations. After the crowds cleared, he was seen searching the site, scanning for empty bottles that he could resell. But the owner of the land, B. Doyle, and supposed friend of Floyd, was wholly unsympathetic. He put up a sign that said, "Floyd's dead body, right this way." Come on now, take a look.
Oh my god. Remember what I said about the internet isn't what made people crappy? Here it is, look at this.
Only 50 cents a gander. It's 100 years later, B's dead. Let's call it even. Also, remember those claims of Kentucky being an open purse? Well, the state reneged on the deal. They refused to pay many of the rescuers, and most of them went home without the promised pay. Many having sacrificed a week's worth of wages from missing their regular work. Some of them did make some money out of the situation, though. They signed on to a type of touring theatre called vaudeville. They roamed the country, telling their personal stories of their attempted rescue. Miller received the best offer out of anyone, however. How about 50 grand to do the Chautauqua lecture circuit?
How much is that
It'll be
today?
worth nearly $1 million in 2023,
Whoa.
Mike. He declined.
Whoa.
He stayed loyal to the Louisville Courier, continuing his work there for several more years. Although, a bit of a perk, he won the 1926 Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on Floyd Collins. Okay, so back to the brother, Homer. He needed money and he agreed to do that vaudeville circuit. He stood on stage and shared with the crowd stories about growing up with his brother, Floyd, and detailing out the tragedy. But Homer made it known why he was up here on stage trying to get money. He had a mission.
I kept thinking of Floyd lying in the muck, where he had suffered beyond our power to imagine. I would never have peace of mind if he remained there.
Oh, does he want to get him out?
He wanted the money to dig Floyd up and get him out of that cave.
Wow.
A couple of months later, he had it. Alright, so back to Floyd. April 17th, 1925. Homer and a team of excavators. They began to dig.
This time
Within
paid.
a week, they had arrived at Floyd. But instead of coming down the same passage near Floyd's head, they approached from the other side where his foot was. It allowed them to remove the rock that trapped him in place. They lifted him up from his tomb and laid him down on the fresh air above. A couple of days later, Floyd was given an honored place at the family cemetery.
That's nice.
Next
That's
to his
really
mother.
nice.
A stalagmite
That's
was taken
very
from
nice.
Sand Cave, carved with his name, and used as a headstone. And there he lay. No, that's not actually weird.
I don't know if I would put the headstone as like a stone from the cave. I don't know if I would do that, but that's nice of them.
Where it ends. Okay, this is where it gets
That's
weird.
not even where it
2
ends.
years
What?
later, 1927.
What?
The Collins family's finances hadn't much improved. A dentist, Harry B. Thomas, walked up to the property and made Lee an offer.
No,
Sell
the
this
tooth,
property to
the
me,
tooth.
and I will give you $10,000. Now, Homer begged him not to, because
Oh my
at
God,
the
the
time, the
tooth.
government was starting to buy up tons of land in the area
Oh my
and turn it
God.
into national parks. They had to pay at a very competitive rate. But Lee was becoming a bit old and senile by this point, and frankly, it's doubtful that he cared about Homer or Floyd or anyone else for that matter. It's 100 years later, he's dead now, let's call it even. So, the point is, in this land sale with Thomas, Lee agreed to a very odd clause. And that clause said, everything on that property belongs to Thomas. And should he wish, for example, to exhume a dead body and re-embalm it and put it on display in something really tacky like a glass coffin inside a cave, maybe, then that would be his prerogative. Lee signed yes. And Thomas did exactly that.
Oh my
Doyle made
God.
Floyd's corpse a tourist attraction.
Oh my God.
That's right. 2 bits of gander, come and wonder at the incredible dead man who died in a cave. But to add insult to injury, it worked. Visitors returned.
His brother worked so hard to get him out of that cave, only for this guy to come and put him back in the cave. What I picked up from the story, L Dad, W Bro, and Friend, and people are shitty when there's money to be made. Well, not even when there's money to be made. The one person that tried to pretend to be him sending a letter to his mom was just like a troll, basically.
Turned to Sand Cave to gawk morbidly at Floyd.
Oh my God.
Within a few months, Thomas had turned Lee's failing farm into a successful business.
Oh, there's a picture. No.
The Collins family, naturally, is appalled by the situation, and they immediately object. They try a number of times to get Floyd returned to them, including through the legal system. But somehow, incredibly, the judge ruled in Thomas's favor. And so, there he lay, for the next 2 years. The cave was not done with Floyd.
Oh my god, no.
Until someone hatched a plan.
Oh,
2
thank
years
God.
later,
Please tell
it's
me they
midnight,
stole and took it
outside
out.
Sand Cave. Footsteps can be heard rustling through the brush. Now, we don't know who these two men
For
are.
a second, I
but
thought
we
the cave
know
was going
why
to
they are
collapse
here.
with his body in it.
To rob a grave. They sneak inside and clamber over the rocks in the darkness. Reaching Floyd's casket, they undo the latch and throw open the lid. There is his shriveled body. They throw him in a gunny sack and they race off into the night. For 800 yards they carry dear Floyd, like a couple of sweaty Santas about to deliver a really terrible Christmas present. Panting, out of breath, knowing that they're going to get caught any minute, they reach the Kentucky Green River hillside. There's no time. With a 1, 2, 3, they launch his body towards the river, and Floyd goes sailing into the air, up, up.
This is what people mean when they say they want their remains like thrown over a waterfall,
and
right?
Landing in a bush. Oh, God. The two men flee from the scene. Now, the next morning, Thomas notices that the body of Floyd is somewhat missing, and he contacts the authorities. The police come, they dust the casket for fingerprints, and bloodhounds are given Floyd's scent and let loose into the hillside. A few hours later, they manage to find him, splayed out in a big shrub down by the river. But this time, with a leg missing, that same one that was trapped under the rock. So, despite his protests, it had been amputated. Neither the leg nor the culprits were ever found. And while it would be nice to think that this was some well-intentioned duo that did this out of the kindness of their hearts to free Floyd, it's much more likely that it was an act of vandalism because Floyd was simply too much of a hot tourist attraction. The following day, Floyd was cast back into the cave, back into his box, and it was covered by a metal lid, surrounded by a metal chain, and locked with a padlock.
At that point, why even leave him there?
Than he had ever been. This cave had spun fate once again to make sure that its victim would never leave. And so, time passed. Floyd's body would continue to decay. The rot from his body would eventually rot the casket too, and every decade or so, it would need to be replaced. A few years later, he was no longer on display, but even then, he remained in that box for many more years. By 1989, Floyd's cave was purchased by Mammoth Cave National Park, and it was closed to the public. There would be no more visitors. The entrance itself to Floyd's cave was closed with a steel gate and bolted, then welded shut. But the Collins family never gave up objecting to Collins' body being left in the cave. And here is where the story ends. In 1989, at the Collins' request, the National Park Service ventured into Floyd's cave. Continuing on a more than 60-year tradition, a team of people worked over the course of several days to remove him from the cave. They took him out, left the cave, locked it behind them, and laid Floyd to rest at the Mammoth Cave Baptist Church
I'm glad. I'm glad.
After 64 years in Sand Cave, he is now finally at peace. The end. Thank you to Wendigoon as Floyd.
If you don't let me out, I'm going to hire a gang of hitmen to come to your house and kill your family.
Samito
Only
as
took
Homer.
him 60 years. Unfortunately, it's so unfortunate that it took that long because the brother was trying so hard to get him out. The brother really was. So what videos have you watched today? Let me see.
Shut the fuck up and eat some BTS, bro.
Ordinary Things as Miller.
I'm enthusiastic, but would ultimately duck out the back exit.
We
Rusty
have watched...
Cage as Gerald.
Oh, well, hello there. Haven't seen y'all in a while. Welcome to my new home.
And
Meet the
many kudos
team.
as Burden.
Valve.
Hey, buddy. You right down there? You was sleepy?
Wizard time.
We get your coffee?
And there's one more I want to watch today.
I'm starting
Got the Joseph from the little sleepy guy.
And do not forget, World of Tanks, World of Tanks. None of this would have happened if Floyd had got World of Tanks.
Hi, hello. Thank you for watching the video this far. I know you've probably already seen the video I'm reacting to, and possibly multiple times, which I do the same, but it really means a lot that you watch mine all the way through to the end. I edit my own videos, and I really enjoy it. And it would really mean a lot if you hit that like and that subscribe button